New survey by the South African 5 teacher unions has concluded that schools are not ready to reopen on the 15th of February. Now, in a blunt response, Debbie Schäfer, Western Cape MEC for Education, says the poll has serious flaws. She believes the sooner we get our children back into school, the better. And she's with me now on Thursday lunchtime. MEC, good afternoon to you. This is a difficult balancing act, I would imagine. I wonder if you have any sympathy at all for teacher concern about safety.
I have a lot of concern for teacher safety, but you're right, it is a balancing act. And we also, when we engage in these activities, we need to really look at the facts. So as much as I have concern for the safety of our teachers, I also have concern for the learners' interests. And I don't really see many people speaking up for the learners. Parents also are in a very difficult situation because many of them are trying to work, having to keep children at home, worry about trying to work from home, as well as teach their children and have them around to look after. Others are going to work anyway and leaving their children untended at home. So there are very many interests that need to be taken into account in these kind of decisions, which is why I believe that, if some research is done like this, it should be balanced and provide accurate information.
You write this in an article in the Daily Maverick. Everyone experiences anxiety about this pandemic and its consequences, but the work has to continue. Is that not slightly an insensitive response to all of this?
I hope not, because I prefaced that with the part that you didn't read, which is I have absolute and utter sympathy with anyone who's lost anybody in this pandemic, including our teachers, particularly our teachers. But as I said, it is not confined to the education profession. Many people we all have anxiety. I don't think there's anyone in this country that has not experienced it. But when we look at the facts of what we've done last year, that we need to see them and set in place at schools, with teachers or with learners. And that's what I'm saying. I'm not in any way trying to be unsympathetic. I'm very aware of the concerns and the anxieties, and I have a lot of empathy with those. But we must look at the facts. And my concern is that they're making these kind of statements 28 days before the schools are even going back yet, saying that they're not going to be ready by the 15th, which is creating the impression that it sounds to me like they're trying to create the schools happening on the 15th. So
what's the position as far as your department is concerned with the unions? Are you shaping up for a fight?
I hope not. I was very careful in how I worded my comments, that I had concerns. They did say it was a dipstick survey. They acknowledged that, and there were some things in the survey that I do agree with. Also are subject to the same limitations, but they also did highlight the fact that 58%, they said, of the schools that they surveyed haven't completed, only 58% had completed the last year's trimmed curriculum. And also that the majority of learners are struggling with interrupted routines. So I hope we're not shaping up for a fight. I sincerely hope not. But I have a real problem with creating this kind of narrative already in the run-up to the schools having to reopen, based on information which is not very accurate and which does tend to create a one-way narrative about schools, whether they are in fact ready. And, based on principals' assumptions, principals' perceptions, 28 days before schools are due to reopen, in fact, they hadn't even gone back to work yet at the point that the survey was done. My question is, why are they trying to create that narrative now already when there is a lot of time still to remedy any issues that they're concerned about?
MEC, I've got one more question. It's all about effective social distancing, I would imagine, once pupils return to the classroom. You speak in your province about rotating timetables that have been provided. Is there strict adherence, though, to those rotating timetables? Do they work?
My information is that they work in the sense of the rotation and being able to keep the distancing, which is important, and which all the medical experts have advised us is necessary. So they work from that point of view. In some ways they are better. Some teachers have said that I actually prefer it because they have fewer children in one class at the same time, so they can give them more individual attention. But obviously they're not going to get through quite as much of the work as they should. But it's far better to do that than to not have any contact time, because the online learning is limited. A number of schools are doing it really well. But all indications are that they are complying and that it is working the best it can work in the circumstances.
What's your strategy if the unions prevail and there's a decree that we don't go back to school. What's your plan?
Well, let's see if they do say that. I'm just trying to give a counter-argument at this point. I really, really hope we're not going to get to that point. I hope that the unions will listen to the medical advice. If not, we'll have to see what the national decision is, because ultimately the national minister has been making these directions under the Disaster Management Act. But I will certainly have my input at the Council of Education Ministers, and I really hope we don't get to that point. I think it's really crucial that children get back to school who can. Obviously, it must be done in a safe manner to protect all our staff as well as children. And I really just hope that will prevail amongst the majority of our stakeholders.
It is a very, very difficult debate, and I thank you for joining us. The MEC for Education in the Western Cape, Debbie Schäfer.